Super rich fantasy. I grow stronger by spending money. Chapter 11. Translator. Nuevo Studio Editor. Nuevo Studio. Looking at Yexian's back as he walked away, the elders' faces were ugly. The fifth elder had a bad temper, so he couldn't hold it in any longer and flicked his sleeve to release his spiritual energy. With a loud boom, the rock that was half the height of a man shattered. Seeing that, no one said anything, he sneered, "You guys are able to tolerate it, but I can't. So what if it's 500,000 spirit stones? How could we let this brat go over our heads? He's only at human realm. How great is he?" The sixth elder glanced at him. "What else do you have in mind then? If you have the ability, throw 500,000 at him and get him to scram." Even Xia Yuxuan, who had the most outstanding financial resources among them, could not do it. For a moment, everyone was silent. Who is this kid? He can casually take out 500,000 spirit stones. He must have an extraordinary background. Could it be that he is a disciple of some super reclusive clans? Is he deliberately hiding his identity and cultivation? If Yexian was really given such an identity, wouldn't everyone be drawn to him in the future? Then it would be difficult to pull him down. Shenhai's eyes darkened, and he said casually, "I don't think so. His cultivation is really at level 2 of human realm. He's not trying to hide his aura." The third elder thought that what he said made sense. Since the great elder has said so, there must be no problem. If his identity is really extraordinary, how could he be only at human realm? "I don't care about his identity or background. I just don't feel comfortable with such a young kid at a position above me. The sect master might fall for his tricks, but we won't." Shenhai continued adding trimmings and pretended to sigh. "If outsiders find out, they'll laugh at us for being useless." As expected, the other elders' faces turned even uglier. "Well said. He's just a nobody? We were of course listening to you, great elder. So what do you think we should do now?" Shenhai didn't want to be the one to stand out, so he pretended to be aggrieved, but the sect master has already decided. "What can we do? We can only follow her orders." Xia Yuxuan's expression was cold. It was obvious that he hated Yexian for what had happened just now. "We have so many people. Can't we manage to deal with him? Let's find an opportunity to drive him away." He seemed to have thought of something. "I think the opening ceremony is a good opportunity." When the others heard this, they immediately revealed curious expressions. Could it be that Elder Xia has a plan? "When the time comes, I'll find the most precious treasure and give it to the sect master. He has already spent 500,000 spirit stones. I don't believe that he can come up with anything good." Xia Yuxuan's gaze fell on the void, full of determination. He had already been suppressed by Yexian just now. This time, he would not let Yexian be so proud again. Seeing that he was so confident, Shenhai was immediately relieved. "Thanks, elder, for your help." The sky was dark blue, and cloudy mist was everywhere. It looked vast everywhere. The trees that covered the sky seemed to be the most primitive forest. This was Qixia mountain range. It was currently sunset, and the sky was red. Hidden at the peak of the mountain range, the red sun slowly set. It moved down the mountain range and the moon appeared, revealing an unspeakable mystery and atmosphere. This was the origin of the name Qixia. Han Yu gathered the people and finally chose a spiritual mountain in Qixia mountain range to establish a sect. She was floating in the air. With a wave of her hand, the clouds in the sky became the background. They were even incomparable to the blush on her snow-white cheeks. Everyone, especially Xia Yuxuan, was a little dazed. A bright divine light bloomed from her hands. Her clothes and hair fluttered in the wind, making her look like a fairy from the ninth heaven who had fallen to the mortal world. Her body exuded an inviolable aura as if she could leave with the wind in the next second. The white light immediately enveloped the mountain like a long dragon, stretching for 100 miles. It whistled past, stirring up the wind and clouds. In an instant, the earth shook and the mountain trembled, startling countless birds to circle in the sky. At the same time, countless beasts fled in all directions. No one knew what had happened. Only the demonic beasts felt the aura of the powerful cultivators and found a place to hide. The fingers against the verdant mountain peak looked more slender and long. Yexian couldn't help but be amazed by Han Yu's white and slim fingers. Han Yu casually pointed her finger like an immortal, showing the way. Countless mountain rocks collapsed and the big trees that covered the sky were cut in half. The rumbling sound was deafening. It was a spectacular scene. Han Yu softly said, "Please help me, elders." Shen Hai, Xie Yuxuan, the second elder, and the other elders all made their moves. All kinds of spiritual power burst out from their fingertips. Only then did Yexian notice that most of these elders had cultivation. Some of their cultivation was not bad, which made him seem a little out of place. Xie Yuxuan said sarcastically, "Elder Ye, please stay away from us. If these rocks fall on you, it will be our careless mistake." He sounded like Yexian was a glass doll, the kind that would be injured with a touch. Looking at a man who was crippled to this extent, the other elders immediately revealed mischievous looks. Yexian replied indifferently, "Elder Xie doesn't look that old, but why are your eyes so blurry? You can't even control your strength accurately. If you're really powerful, why would these rocks fly all over the place?" Xie Yuxuan was speechless. They were clearly the ones who contributed. Yexian was just standing by and watching, yet he looked like he was superior. "What abilities do you have? You're only a level 2 human realm cultivator, but you're still giving orders." Yexian retorted, "I'm sorry, but I have a lot of money." Chapter 12 Translator, Nuobo Studio Editor. Nuobo Studio. When the sky gradually darkened, it seemed to have been burned by a fire. The red clouds became darker and darker, and the green mountains in the daytime were also dyed with a thick ink-like luster. The spiritual mountain that Han Yu and the others had chosen was almost cleaned up. The white mountain protecting formation shimmered faintly in the night like a bright pearl embedded in the mountains, ravishing and dazzling. That's all for today. From now on, this place will be the address of our Taiching sect. After Han Yu surveyed Qixia mountain range, she divided a small area to be used as the spiritual mountain. She only set up a simple mountain protecting formation and drove away the demonic beasts inside. Establishing a sect was a major event. They could not complete it overnight. Today was only the beginning, and there was still a long way to go. Moreover, there was nothing in the sect. It was only a shell now. It could be said that the road of cultivation was long and far. All of you here will be the senior figures of Taiching sect in the future. In the future, we will grow together and carry forward Taiching sect. There will be no lack of benefits for you till then. Han Yu's tone was flat, without any fluctuations. Perhaps her personality was just so cold that only spirit stones could move her. However, just her face alone was quite sufficient to attract everyone. "I will obey sect master's instructions," Han Yu said profoundly. At the beginning of the sect, the contribution points of each elder are calculated according to the degree of individual contribution. Please do your best and work together to carry forward our Taiching sect. "Don't worry, sect master," the crowd replied in unison. After Han Yu left, almost all the elders left together. Yexian seemed to have been forgotten. He was alone, looking out of place. However, he didn't care about this kind of thing. This group of people deliberately wanted to isolate him. He didn't have the mood to fawn over them since he was given the cold shoulder. Looking at Yexian's back as he left, everyone looked at each other. "What do you all think of the sect master's words just now?" Xie Yuxuan's eyes were cold. "When the time comes, everyone must take something good out. Don't let others look down on us." Everyone knew that he had an ulterior motive. They immediately revealed a tacit smile. "Don't worry, Elder Xie. This time, we'll definitely bring out all the good things we have." At that time, Yexian would completely lose his face at the opening ceremony and get out of Taiching sect. Qixia mountain range had been particularly lively these few days. The elders who had money contributed money, those who had the power contributed power, and those who both had no money and power went out to recruit disciples. They had busy days and it could be said that no one was idle. However, there was only one person who appeared and disappeared unpredictably, and that person was Yexian. Xie Yuxuan looked at the few people who were walking towards him. They had bronze skin and were dressed in coarse short-sleeved shirts. They were carrying a carrying pole that was covered with black cloth. He did not know what was inside. They did not look like disciples of Taiching sect, but more like porters. "What are you guys doing?" "It's your sect's elder Ye who asked me to send something over," the man in the lead said. What was Yexian up to this time? Xie Yuxuan frowned slightly. "Send something? How come I didn't know about this?" The porter smiled, revealing his white teeth. "We don't know either. We're just following the orders." Under the scorching sun, the porters were sweating profusely and smelled. Xie Yuxuan covered his nose and took a few steps back. with a look of disgust on his face. He had wanted to see what was in the load, but he lost the mood. All right. Hurry up and leave. When he saw the other elders, he couldn't help but complain, what's this Yexian doing? It's fine if he doesn't do anything, but now he's even hiring a porter. What's wrong with him? Does he want to add bricks and tiles to our Taiching sect? The second elder was also speechless. That's right. These few days, there were suddenly a lot of strange faces around me. I was puzzled initially, but later I found out that he is the one making a mess. I think he's just here to make things worse. What can these porters do? Everyone chimed in one after another. Their words were all against Yexian. Sect master, you have to be the judge. This kid is obviously trying to be mysterious and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Han Yu didn't care much about this. With Yexian's 500,000 spirit stones, she didn't care if he didn't do anything. However, she still needed to appease the elders. Everyone has worked hard. I will remember everyone's contribution. As for Elder Yes matter, everyone can turn a blind eye to it. After all, he has spent so many spirit stones. After saying a few more words of encouragement, Han Yu found an excuse to leave. Sect master is too biased. That kid only spent slightly more spirit stones than us. What's so good about him? No one dared to blame Han Yu. However, they were even more dissatisfied with Yexian. Xie Yuxuan's expression was not too good. One day, the sect master will know that the kid is useless. By the way, do you know what's on the carrier's back? Someone asked. The third elder didn't think much of it. I don't think they're of anything good. The group of porters were slovenly dressed, and even their carrying poles were dirty. These elders, who claimed to be of noble status and condescending, were in no mood to check on those things. Everyone, don't be angry. When the sect's grand opening ceremony comes and the sect master sees our gifts, she will naturally be disappointed in that kid. At that time, we'll be able to vent our anger. With this thought in mind, everyone became more and more expectant. Soon, it was the time for the sect opening ceremony. It was reasonable to invite other sects to attend the ceremony. However, most of the buildings in Taiching sect had not been repaired except for the main hall. Moreover, they were not familiar with the surrounding sects. Therefore, no outsiders were invited to this ceremony. Only the disciples and elders of Taiching sect were invited. Even so, the number of people present was not small. It was at least the size of a small sect. Chapter 13 Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio Bong. The melodious sound of the bell drifted in the distance and startled countless birds. The mountain range was endless, and one of the peaks stood out the most. It stood among the clouds and was surrounded by immortal mist. The sun shone on the peak, shining with a supreme purple light. It was as if the good fortune was here. It was mighty and intimidating. At this moment, Han Yu and the others were standing at the highest point of the spiritual mountain. She was at the head of the group, like a myriad of stars surrounding the moon. The clouds and smoke were faint, which made her face even more otherworldly, like a celestial being. She made people feel awe. Even the others were overjoyed when they saw the beautiful scene in front of them. The sea of clouds churned. The fog surged like a whale swallowing its prey, and the spiritual energy here was extremely pure. The gods are blessing our Taiching sect, the third elder complimented. They bestow the auspicious signs at our grand ceremony. Even Han Yu, who had always been cold, could not help but smile slightly when she heard this. Thank you, third elder, for your kind words. She looked around and realized that someone was missing. Why is Elder Ye not here yet? Everyone's expressions changed. The fourth elder frowned and immediately launched an attack. What's wrong with Elder Ye? How can he be late for such an important occasion? Isn't he looking down on the sect master too much? The fifth elder said hypocritically, perhaps something happened on the way and he was delayed. Xie Yuxuan added calmly, no matter how important the matter is, can it be more important than the sect opening ceremony? He's making all of us to wait for him. This elder Ye, we had not been seeing him before this. We don't know where he was hiding and slacking off. And now, he is doing such a thing. He is really too arrogant. Hearing the words of the elders, the disciples were in an uproar and kept whispering to each other. Seeing that everyone was complaining, Han Yu had no choice. Then, let's begin. A smile flashed in the elders' eyes. To be late for such a big event, Yexian could play himself to death almost without them doing anything. Do you think he's worried that his gift isn't good enough, so he deliberately didn't show his face? I think it's very possible. At least he knows his place. Being scolded by the sect master is better than losing face in public. There were several processes on the sect opening ceremony. Other than opening the mountain and paying respects to the sect master, the most important part was that the sect master would return the gifts of similar value to the elders. Gifts. From this point, one could tell the strength of these elders' family backgrounds. Great Elder has gifted a ginseng fruit. Shenhai held a tricolored fruit in his hand. It was like a jade, shining with a bright light. The most surprising thing was that the fruit looked like a baby, with its small arms and legs curled up on the tray. Even its facial features were lifelike, as if it would come to life in the next second. Such a strange scene made everyone click their tongues in wonder. It's actually a ginseng fruit. It looks like it's at least 500 years old. It's said that the older it is, the more human-like it looks. Eating it will make one stay young forever and increase one's lifespan. Great Elder is really generous. 1,000-year-old ginseng fruit can even transform into a human form. Eating it will be of great benefit. However, 1,000-year-old ginseng fruit is extremely rare. This 500-year-old ginseng fruit is also rare. Hearing everyone's discussion, Shenhai's expression did not change. However, his eyes were filled with pride. The second elder has gifted 3 supreme-grade Bodhi pills. The 3 green pills exuded a faint and strange fragrance, refreshing one's heart and mind. Just like a cool spring that directly struck one's heart, it actually gave one a feeling of enlightenment. The supreme-grade Bodhi pills should be at least at the 6th grade, right? Second elder is actually so generous to give 3 6th-grade pills. Exactly, the second elder is a very secretive person. To be able to give such a good item at such a critical moment, could he be an alchemist? The second elder heard the crowd's discussion and admitted in front of everyone, "That's right, I am indeed an alchemist. I spent a large amount of precious materials to refine these Bodhi pills. I only managed to obtain these few and I'm giving them all to the sect master." Good Lord? Although the second elder did not tell explicitly, it was obvious that his alchemy skill was quite high. Otherwise, he would not have been able to refine the supreme-grade Bodhi pill. The third elder presents the 7-colored satin. It was said to be colorful, but what appeared was white satin. Everyone couldn't help but tease, "Third elder, you're exaggerating. It's completely white." The third elder revealed a mysterious smile. "Everyone, please take a look." The white satin stood in the air and floated around Han Yu. It was unknown what material it was made of, but it looked extremely ethereal. It was as thin as cicada silk. It reflected a 7-colored light under the sunlight. It was extremely beautiful. There was also faint coldness that matched Han Yu's attribute. Her peerless beautiful face became even more beautiful and charming. It was obvious that she also liked this 7-colored satin. All female cultivators loved beauty, and even Han Yu was no exception. Moreover, this 7-colored satin could be used to attack and defend. Furthermore, the female cultivator's figure was beautiful when she used it, as if she was dancing and was tailor-made for her. One could see the third elder's intention, although it couldn't be compared to the magic weapons that Han Yu used in the upper realm. It was already one of the best in the lower realm. The fourth elder presents the silver-hearted sky spirit grass. The fifth elder presents the waterproof magic robe. Everyone's gifts had their own unique characteristics. It could be said that each of them had their own merits and were extremely precious and extraordinary. However, Han Yu seemed to be uninterested in everything else other than the 7-colored satin just now. However, she had always been expressionless. No one noticed her emotion. These things are just so-so. Sect Master, this isn't the upper realm after all. If we look at the standard of the lower realm, it's already considered pretty good, the old man beside her consoled. Soon, it was Xie Yuxuan's turn. He revealed a determined smile. Chapter 14 Translator, Nuovo Studio Editor, Nuovo Studio. I've specially found the night luminescent pearl from the East Sea for Sect Master. I've embedded it on the ring to congratulate Sect Master. The bronze ring lay quietly on the tray. The body of the ring was carved with complicated and hollow patterns, which looked particularly exquisite. The most amazing thing was that the shape of the ring was like a flying dragon with the use of an ingenious technique. There was a bright night luminescent pearl embedded in the dragon's mouth. It was shining even during the day. The vast spiritual energy surrounded the dragon's body, making it look extraordinary. The dragon seemed to be alive under the light of the pearl, as if it was about to break free of the ring's shackles and fly into the sky. Although the pearl was small and exquisite, its appearance was extremely perfect. Everyone's eyes widened in wonder. It's full and round, and the spiritual energy is so rare. It can be said to be the best among the night luminescent pearls. Exactly. I've never seen such a pearl before. I'm afraid it will cost a lot of spirit stones. Just based on its appearance, it's hard to find in this world. Even if you have spirit stones, you might not be able to buy it. I'm afraid that you'll have to spend a lot of energy and manpower to get it. Elder Xie is indeed extraordinary. It was said that wearing the pearls from the East Sea could increase one's cultivation. Whether it was used in magic weapons, pills, or formation materials, the pearls were very useful. They could greatly improve the efficacy of the items. Therefore, the night luminescent pearls were extremely precious. The deeper the sea, the higher the quality of the pearls produced. However, there would also be fierce sea beasts guarding them at the same time. It was difficult for ordinary people to approach, let alone pick them. Only powerful cultivators had the ability to do so. However, the sea was different from the land. After entering the water, one's strength would be reduced and it was very dangerous. That was why everyone was so amazed by the night luminescent pearl that Xie Yuxuan had given the sect master. Elder Xie must have spent a lot of effort on this night luminescent pearl. Hearing the discussion around him, Xie Yuxuan said humbly, "It's not as exaggerated as everyone says." The more nonchalant he was, the more impressed everyone was. "However, I will get whatever the sect master likes, come hell or high water. Thank you for this gift, Elder. You deserve to be the first. We're truly fortunate today. Thanks to Elder Xie that we're able to see such a top-grade night luminescent pearl. Elder Xie is so rich and generous. I can't even hope to catch up with you." In the midst of the compliments, an untimely male voice suddenly rang out. "Sorry, I'm late." Everyone turned around. It was Yexian, who had arrived late. The fourth elder immediately said in a strange tone, "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's our busy man, Elder Ye. I thought you wouldn't be coming to the opening ceremony this time." Yexian didn't seem to hear the sarcasm in his words. He said calmly, "How could that be? I was just held up by some matters. What could be more important than the opening ceremony?" Seeing that Yexian was empty-handed and didn't seem to be carrying any gifts with him, the elders looked at each other with anticipation of a good show. The fifth elder pretended to be surprised. "Elder Ye, what's wrong with you? You clearly know that today is the opening ceremony of the sect. Why didn't you bring any gifts?" Maybe he was too busy and forgot. Forgetting is a lie. I think he didn't prepare anything at all. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to give a good gift and would lose face in front of everyone, so he made up an excuse. The elders exchanged glances with one another while the disciples discussed animatedly below. Their surprised or contemptuous gazes fell on Yexian. A dignified elder couldn't even present a gift. How could he convince the public in the future? On the other hand, Yexian, who was at the center of public opinion, was extremely calm. Before Yexian could speak, another rough and vigorous male voice interrupted, "Elder Xie, please pay the bill. We've done what you asked us to do." This group of people was the group of porters. He didn't know how they had gotten here. "Sect Master, do you have any spirit stones? Can you help me pay first?" The moment he finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. Even the sound of a needle falling to the ground could be heard. Not to mention the disciples, even the elders were dumbfounded. They could not believe what they had just heard. At the opening ceremony, not only was Yexian late, but he was also empty-handed. Now he even wanted to borrow money from the sect master. The sixth elder raised an eyebrow. "Elder Ye, you actually don't have this small amount of money, and we also don't know what did you hire these porters for. And now, you still want the sect master to pay for you. Isn't this a little too absurd? How can he be an elder with such moral conduct? Furthermore, he's above us. He can't convince the masses. Sect master, please have a deep consideration." Sure enough, these elders were using this matter to make a big deal out of it. She couldn't let these porters stand by the side all the time. After all, it was the opening ceremony of the sect. It was too much. Han Yu asked, "How many spirit stones?" The porter smiled, revealing his white teeth. The words he said almost scared people to death. "Not much, just 10,000 spirit stones. 10,000 spirit stones? And just one had to know that spirit stones was the most important thing to Han Yu now. Her mood suddenly fluctuated a little when she heard this, but she quickly regained her calm. Even the others were very puzzled. What did Elder Ye ask these porters to do? They are actually asking for 10,000 spirit stones. Usually it's only a few dozen or a few hundred, and at most a few thousand. Everyone was in disbelief when they heard the sky-high price. Elder Ye is being too prodigal, isn't it? You shouldn't spend like this even if your clan has a mine. Han Yu couldn't do something as embarrassing as bargaining in public. Therefore, she had to take out all the money even if she was unwilling. Before the porters left, she even heard the porters discussing about Tai Ching's sect was really rich. Chapter 15 Translator, Nuovo Studio Editor, Nuovo Studio. I'm very curious about what Elder Ye is up to. 10,000 spirit stones is not a small amount. Who is Elder Ye actually? He was able to take out 500,000 spirit stones earlier, but why is he reluctant to spend 10,000 now? This is not in line with his usual style. You obviously can't take out any spirit stones, yet you're still trying to act mysterious and sensationalize. In the face of everyone's mockery, Han Yu's eyes fell on Ye Xian. Anyone with eyes could see that she was in a bad mood now. Elder Ye, do you have anything to say? Aren't you all curious about why I've invited the porters? Ye Xian said unhurriedly, come with me and you'll know. Looking at Ye Xian's comeback, the other elders looked at each other. He's still being stubborn. I'd like to see how he'll end this. The group immediately followed. Halfway through, they saw a strange light in front of them. It was like a sparkling lake that reflected different lights under the sunlight. What's that in front? It's so shiny. When the crowd got closer and saw it clearly, they thought they were hallucinating. I'm not dreaming, am I? Someone stammered. It was a neat row of steps, extending from the foot of the mountain. This was not the main point. The main point was that all the steps were covered with night luminescent pearls. The scene was simply dreamy to the extreme. Plump, round, and large night luminescent pearls were embedded on the steps. It was obvious that they were of perfect quality. Moreover, any one of them was several times larger than the ones Xie Yuxuan had given to the sect master earlier. They were simply best of the best. Originally, everyone had thought that the night luminescent pearl on the ring was already the best, but now it was like a grain of white rice among so many night luminescent pearls. It was really too unremarkable. If you don't compare yourself with others, you won't get hurt. Everyone finally understood this principle now. It even gave everyone the illusion that they were not night luminescent pearls, but cabbages that could be seen everywhere. Are night luminescent pearls so easy to obtain nowadays? Wake up, only Elder Ye has the ability. Don't talk about one, you can't even afford half a pearl. So many night luminescent pearls. How many spirit stones would it cost? At a rough glance, it's almost 100,000 pearls. Everyone couldn't help but swallow their saliva. 100,000 light luminescent pearls, and they are of such high quality. How much would it cost? This isn't a matter of spirit stones. This is simply priceless and can't be measured in spirit stones. Look at the night luminescent pearls that are currently on the market. Which one can compare to these? I heard that the city lord has a top-grade night luminescent pearl. It's said to be his family heirloom that has been around for more than 100 years. I was lucky enough to see it before. It's indeed extraordinary. But compared to this, moreover, the city lord extremely cherished the pearl and wiped it every day, whilst the one in front of him was casually laid on the steps and would even be trampled under the feet of others in the future. When everyone thought of this possibility, they felt as if their breathing had stopped. To be able to step on the steps paved with 100,000 night luminescent pearls. How proud was this? It was simply inhumane to be rich, and it could be boasted about for a lifetime. All the disciples' expressions became excited, and they looked at Ye Xian with respect and admiration. Elder Ye is a ruthless person? He's the only one who's capable of using 100,000 night luminescent pearls to cover the ground. It would be great if I could become Elder Ye's disciple. Although his cultivation level isn't high, what's there to be afraid of with such a rich master? I can use night luminescent pearls to smash people to death in the future. Don't even think about it. I'm Elder Ye's disciple. You stinky and shameless person. You were the one who spoke ill of Elder Ye just now, but now you still have the face to be his disciple. You're making it seems like you didn't say anything. Shenhai's expression was particularly unsightly when he saw the disciples' faces turn red when arguing and their spittle sprayed everywhere, even almost spraying on his face. Xie Yuxuan and some elders were equally unhappy. This Ye Xian? If I had known that he was using night luminescent pearls to lay the ground, I wouldn't have let him have his way no matter what. Who would have thought that Ye Xian didn't play by the rules? Ordinary people would worship such precious night luminescent pearls like a bodhisattva, but he just gave it to these porters so casually, and it was even used to pave the steps. On second thought, they would probably treat them like stones on the side of the road and not care at all too, if they had so many night luminescent pearls. However, they were not Ye Xian. This realization made everyone feel vexed and helpless. Then, it turned into deep jealousy and they stared at Ye Xian. But not all elders were like this. After all, there were not many people who could casually take out so many night luminescent pearls and use them to lay the ground, although Ye Xian's cultivation was not high enough. However, wealth was also a part of one's strength. This kind of temperament and courage was also not something ordinary people could achieve. Sect Master is an immortal and should not be tainted with the secular world. I'm willing to pave the ground with night luminescent pearls to show my sincerity. Isn't this road leading to the Sect Master's residence? When Han Yu heard this, her heart could not help but be moved. Although she had seen many treasures in the upper realm, and the night luminescent pearls were not precious to her, she didn't have so many pearls either. After all, such courage was rare even in the upper realm. Even those rich prodigal sons were not like him. This Ye Xian was indeed not simple. Chapter 16 Translator, Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio Han Yu was indeed shocked by the number of 100,000, but she had seen great scenes before. Therefore, she didn't lose her composure like the others. She said with a normal expression, "You're so thoughtful. If Sect Master is happy, then these night luminescent pearls will not be wasted. At least they are useful now." The crowd was speechless. The night luminescent pearls seemed to be useless in Ye Xian's eyes and could only be used to pave the floor. He was simply a humble brag. For a moment, everyone's jealousy and envy filled up the air. Only one person had a livid expression, and that was Xie Yuxuan. His eyes were red with anger as he watched Han Yu and Ye Xian's interaction. One must know that Han Yu didn't say a word when he gave her the ring. This Ye Xian is simply going against me. He wasn't the only one who had such thought, but also the other elders. Ye Xian's actions had made their gifts seem worthless. The total value of everyone's gifts here was probably not even 1/10 of the night luminescent pearls. What they gave was obviously not ordinary, but Ye Xian was too rich, making the gifts look like they had been dug out of a garbage dump. Ye Xian looked at the elders' expressions, which changed from green to red like a palette. He walked over with a smile and said, "Now you know why I've hired the porters. I wonder if everyone thinks the 10,000 spirit stones worth it." Ye Xian's words were like a loud slap in their faces. The fifth elder wanted to retort, but he found that he couldn't say anything at all. The more mocking they were before, the more embarrassed they were now. Moreover, there were so many disciples watching from the side. Someone said boldly, "Since Elder Ye is misunderstood, shouldn't you apologize? We were almost misled. It's human nature to apologize after doing something wrong. You can't simply criticize others just because you're an elder." The fifth elder glared at the source of the voice. The disciples quickly lowered their heads as if they knew that the fifth elder would cause them trouble. He had no idea who had said it, so he could only let it go. At this moment, the few elders didn't know what to do. They were in a dilemma. What should we do now? I don't know either. It's all your fault for being too harsh with your words just now. It's too late to regret it now. You still have the cheek to talk about me? You've also embroidered earlier. Who knew that he would be able to use 100,000 night luminescent pearls to pave the ground? The fourth elder and the fifth elder were whispering to each other, and they felt restless as they faced the crowd's gazes. Their expressions became even uglier. Countless gazes were fixed on them. The disciples were discussing, and their voices grew louder and louder. Ye Xian enjoyed the embarrassment on their faces with great interest, and finally showed mercy. "Forget it. I'm a magnanimous man. We're all from the same sect, so there's no need to be so petty and calculative." He said the last few words with deep meaning. Anyone could tell that Ye Xian was referring to the matter of these people working together to run him down. Now, it could be said that the tables had turned. Many disciples could not help but laugh. This elder Ye was not only rich, but also had a sharp tongue. His style of doing things was really unique. Congratulations to the host for completing the mission of consuming 100,000 night luminescent pearls. Mission reward, 500. Prodigal points random mission. Consume 10,000 crystal ice chalcedony, an extremely rare item that can be used as the core of a formation and provide a huge amount of spiritual energy. Mission reward, 500 prodigal points. Mission failure will result in random points deduction. Mission time limit, 3 days. Hearing the system's notification, Ye Xian was overjoyed and accepted the mission. Without hesitation. He didn't expect that a mission would be refreshed so quickly after it was completed. Crystal ice chalcedony sounded like a good item. It would probably be easier to spend 10,000 of them than the 100,000 night luminescent pearls. Soon, it was time for the sect master to give gifts in return. At this moment, Han Yu was in a dilemma. How was she going to return the 100,000 night luminescent pearls? She was afraid that even with all her assets, she wouldn't be able to return Ye Xian's generous gift. The old man beside Han Yu saw her dilemma and reminded her in a low voice, Sect Master's gift must not be taken lightly to avoid the people below from criticizing. The old man wished that he could worship Ye Xian as the god of fortune. This kid gave us 500,000 spirit stones previously, and now even 100,000 night luminescent pearls. It's obvious that he has an extraordinary background. He's rich and overbearing, so we must win him over. In the future, he will definitely be able to help Sect Master with your revenge. Elder Bai, I know what you mean. But how should I return the favor? Elder Bai seemed to have thought of something. I remember that you had obtained a top body technique by chance. This kid's cultivation level is not high enough. If he has a technique with him, it would be more secure. I think it would be the most suitable gift in return. These words made sense. Han Yu nodded. A book appeared in her hand with a flash of inspiration, which exuding an inexplicable aura. The moment the book appeared, it instantly attracted everyone's attention. Even the ordinary disciples could feel that it was extraordinary, let alone the elders who knew what it was. On the light blue cover, a few large golden words were written on it, shining with supreme spirituality, mysterious hidden steps. The heaven with spiritual energy is the best, the king with techniques is the best, the hidden technique is the best, and the law with clear judgment is the best. If this body technique is cultivated to the peak, it will be mysterious and difficult to detect. No matter how powerful and capable an expert is, he or she will neither be able to keep up with you, nor to find you. Chapter 17 Translator, Nuovo Studio Editor. Nuovo Studio. Hearing Han Yu's introduction, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Is it really that amazing? I've never heard of such a body technique in the world. Since the sect master has said so, that's for sure. Does the sect master look like someone who brags? D*MN, this cultivation technique is too awesome. I also want to learn that. The condition is that you have to gift 100,000 night luminescent pearls first. The disciples discussed animatedly with envy. Even the elders were envious. After all, who wouldn't be tempted by such a top-notch cultivation technique? After hearing Han Yu's introduction, Ye Xian's eyes couldn't help but light up. This was exactly what he needed the most right now. After all, he had to complete the missions and get a lot of prodigal points. It was inevitable that it would attract the covetous eyes of people with ulterior motives. However, his cultivation level was not high. This kind of behavior was no different from a child holding gold and swaggering through the market. Robbing money would definitely be a common thing in the future. With this cultivation technique, escaping was simply first class. From now on, he could roam the world freely. My heartfelt thanks to Sect Master. Body techniques determined speed, mental cultivation methods determined spiritual will, breathing techniques determined physical strength, and cross-training determined defense. In addition, there were fist techniques, sword techniques, spear techniques, and so on. Ye Xian wasn't in a hurry for the rest of the things, so he could put them aside for the time being. However, mental cultivation methods were more important, so he decided to ask Han Yu for advice if there was a chance in the future. After the opening ceremony, Han Yu gathered everyone and the outstanding disciples together. There is one more important thing right now, and that is the formation of the mountain protection. The mountain protecting formation was particularly important, as it concerned the dignity and face of the sect. Another important point was that Taiching sect was established in Qixia mountain range. There were many demonic beasts nearby. The formation was necessary in order to ensure the safety of the disciples and prevent attacks from powerful demonic beasts. Previously, Han Yu had only set up a simple formation, but it was not so simple to set the whole thing up. Not to mention covering the entire mountain, it also needed a strong ability to resist foreign enemies. Not only it would take a lot of effort, but also the materials were enough to give people a headache. After all, it was a large amount. Even Xie Yuxuan, who wanted to show off in front of Han Yu, did not dare to boast. After a moment of silence, someone recommended himself, "Sect Master, I'm quite knowledgeable about formations. If you don't mind, you can leave the construction of the mountain protecting formation to me." Han Yu looked at the person who came forward. It was the sixth elder. "I'll leave this matter to the sixth elder then. But I need to go to the site to investigate." Soon, under the sixth elder's lead, everyone had walked around Taiching sect. The others had no knowledge of formations. Even if they did, they only had a little understanding. The ways of formations were extremely profound. The mainstream cultivation methods were sword techniques, spell techniques, fist techniques, and so on. There were also people like the sixth elder who cultivated formations, talismans, pills, or weapons refining. At this moment, the sixth elder was holding a compass in his hand. It was very ancient in style, engraved with the heavenly stem and earthly branch, 5 elements, and 8 trigrams. The needle was slightly shaking, and it looked very exquisite. Occasionally, they would see the sixth elder stop from time to time. He kept muttering and drawing, appearing quite mysterious. Although they were curious, they didn't dare to ask, for fear of disturbing the sixth elder. The sixth elder had almost gone through all the directions. Then, everyone followed him to a mountain peak. It was surrounded by clouds and mist, as if one could pick up the stars and the moon with one's hand. The scenery was very beautiful. Only then did the sixth elder put away the compass. "I already have a basic understanding of the sect's layout. This is the highest mountain peak, where I can have a better view of the entire mountain's terrain and have a bird's eye view of the entire situation." Everyone stood on the peak and looked into the distance. Just as the sixth elder said, the entire Taiching sect was in their eyes. They felt like they were on the top of the mountain and looking down at the other small mountains. You can see that the entire direction of our Taiching sect is from low to high, from the north to the south. The east and the west are flat and open. The overall direction is very good. It can be seen that the site was chosen with great care. As the saying went, "Stand tall and see far." Indeed, it could be seen that the trees grew low in the north and high in the south. Moreover, there was less vegetation in the east and the west. Most of them were flat. Moreover, Taiching sect is located in an easterly direction from the center of the entire mountain range. The east is a good direction, which is an auspicious position. The sun rises from the east, and good fortune comes from the direction. Therefore, the place with the most abundant spiritual energy in the mountain range is also gathered here. This is also the reason why there are so many demonic beasts nearby. The stronger the demonic beasts are, the more they can sense the special spiritual energy in this place. Then, they will slowly come closer. After listening to the sixth elder's story, everyone felt enlightened. As they went deeper, they found that there were indeed more powerful demon beasts in the east. It just so happens that we can borrow the strength of the spiritual energy here. As long as we find the center, we can draw the spiritual energy from Qixia mountain range for us to use to set up the formation. This will save us a lot of effort. This plan is truly brilliant. The crowd couldn't help but praise. Ye Xian thought of the sixth elder suddenly bringing them here, and thus he guessed, could this be the center that sixth elder was talking about? The sixth elder cast a look of approval. Elder Ye is indeed intelligent and having high power of understanding. So this is where the eye of the entire formation is, and I will use it as the center. In the 5 elements and 8 trigrams, the east and the south here corresponds to Qian and Kun. Take a look and see if there are any differences in the shape of the mountains in these 2 directions. Everyone looked in the direction the sixth elder was pointing at. The mountain range there rose and fell, layer upon layer, extending for thousands of li into the distance. No one could tell what was the difference for a long time. Sixth elder, don't try to be mysterious. Just tell us directly. Chapter 18 Translator, Nuovo Studio Editor, Nuovo Studio. The sixth elder only revealed a Mysterious smile, and his gaze fell on Yexian. I wonder if Elder Ye has any wise ideas. Not expecting to be called out suddenly, Yexian hesitated for a moment before saying, from afar, it looks like a circling dragon. That's right, it's a dragon? It seems that Elder Ye is born with enlightenment even though you have never studied the ways of formations. You can come to me and discuss about this in the future if you are interested. Yexian looked at the sixth elder in surprise when he heard this. The sixth elder nodded at him. His expression and actions were conveying a kind of goodwill. This was the first elder to express goodwill to him. In contrast, the expressions of a few other elders changed slightly when they heard this. Xia Yuxuan snorted. It's good that sixth elder is in the mood to give advice, but you have to see who the person is. Elder Ye is only at level 2 human realm. The most important thing to him is to improve his cultivation. I think he doesn't have the time to discuss this with you. These words seemed to be for Yexian's good. But in fact, it was a secret warning to the sixth elder not to meddle in other people's business. I know what I'm doing, yeah. Xian said calmly, there's no need for Elder Xia to worry. I don't want to bother either, but your cultivation level is too low. It's still bad for my Tai Ching sect's face. The two of them went back and forth. The seemingly peaceful atmosphere was in fact turbulent undercurrents. For a time, there was a widespread feeling of insecurity. The seventh elder was an impatient and straightforward person. He didn't understand the twists and turns, so he couldn't help but interrupt. All right, all of you stop talking. Sixth elder, quickly tell us what's the difference. The heaven and earth back charge. Within the dragon, there are claws, feet, back and chest. It's unpredictable when it's hidden, and it's endless when it moves. The formation is impressive. The sixth elder pointed out several directions, and everyone hurriedly looked over. It was still the same mountain range, which echoed the sixth elder's words. Everyone couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. It was true. The mountain forest with strange rocks was where the dragon claw was located. It looked extremely sharp and shimmered with a cold light. The low jungle nearby was its back, undulating and magnificent. Dense vegetation crisscrossed, forming the shape of a dragon's tail. This place is like a sleeping dragon. It doesn't look obvious on the surface, but if it's awakened, it'll be ever-changing. It can attack and also defend. It's full of mysteries. Hearing the sixth elder's description, everyone couldn't help but look forward to it. The scene in front of them seemed to come alive, as if a dragon had really awakened from its long sleep. The dragon's roar shook the surroundings. Then what can we do to awaken this dragon? Everyone, please look at the position of the dragon's eye. The dragon's eye that the sixth elder was talking about was a mountain stream not far away in the southeast. Although it was called a mountain stream, the spring water had dried up, and there was still water nearby. It looked a little empty, as if something was missing. I've already discovered this when I was surveying the area. This terrain is extremely rare, but it lacks the most important aspect. The spring water has dried up, causing the dragon's eyes to be lifeless. Thus, this dragon can't be fully revived and can only rest here. That's why I'm going to set up the core of the formation carefully, so that I can add the finishing touch. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but urge, sixth elder, hurry up and set it up. What are you still waiting for? The sixth elder said helplessly, do you think I don't want to set it up? I have most of the materials I need, but I'm missing the most important one. This material is extremely rare, and this was water spirit pearl. Without water, spirit pearl, everything I said just now would be useless. Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard about water spirit pearl. The water spirit pearl was born in a place where the essence of water was gathered. It was born in places where the water element was dense. This kind of natural magic weapon was the rarest. Does any of you have a water spirit pearl? How could we possibly have that kind of thing? After a round of communication, no one had water spirit pearl. At this moment, a disciple hurried over, reporting to the sect master, Shengyun sect has just sent a letter to congratulate the establishment of our Tai Ching sect. They said it's a pity that they didn't witness the opening ceremony of the sect. They will definitely pay a visit tomorrow. Han Yu's face changed slightly. She couldn't help but say, this group of people can't wait any longer. They actually came for us so quickly. The words from Shengyun sect sounded polite, but who didn't know their thoughts? They just wanted to test the strength of Tai Ching sect. To put it bluntly, they were here to challenge them and to show them their power. After all, No one would be happy to have a sect appear out of thin air. This meant that the resources would be divided. Those sects were all very shrewd. How could they tolerate things that affected their own interests? Of course they had to take action. If Tai Ching sect was weak and could be bullied, then in the future, they would bully and occupy the sect at their will, be it resources or other aspects. Therefore, they could only succeed in tomorrow's battle. Failure was not allowed. Otherwise, their Tai Ching sect would not have no foothold, and their position in the future would be even more precarious. The others also knew the seriousness of the situation and quickly asked, "What should we do now, sect master?" Han Yu had long expected such a day to come, but she didn't expect this group of people to be more difficult to deal with than she had imagined. They didn't even give them a chance to react. The most important thing now is to quickly set up the formation. Otherwise, it'll be outrageous if we don't even have a formation when they arrive tomorrow. Let's go take a look at the auction house first. There might be a water spirit pearl. Now, they could only take a step back and visit the auction house. Although the price was much higher, there was no other way for the sake of Tai Ching sect. However, Han Yu and the others were disappointed. They couldn't find water spirit pearl after walking around the whole town. Chapter 19 Translator, Nuevo Studio Editor, Nuevo Studio. The auctioneer was surprised to hear their intentions. Water spirit pearl? How can we have such a divine item here? We only have water elemental pearl here. Do you want it? Although the difference was only one word, they were worlds apart whether it was in terms of effect or other aspects. Although water elemental pearl was also rich in water element, it was extremely weak and many of them had impurities. It could barely be considered a substitute for water spirit pearl. Han Yu looked at the sixth elder. I wonder if water elemental pearl can replace water spirit pearl. The sixth elder looked a little embarrassed. If it was a water elemental pearl, the effect would be greatly reduced. But there is no other way now. How many spirit stones does this water elemental pearl cost? Even though it was an incomplete substitute, the price that the boss of the auction house offered was too high for Han Yu and the others to bear. When the seventh elder heard the price that the boss had offered, he could not help but blurt out, "So expensive. Why don't you just go and rob? This is just a defective product of water spirit pearl." The boss of the auction house revealed a look of disdain. Even though it's a defective product, it's still a rare existence. Do you want it or not? The spirit stones that Han Yu had collected earlier, including Yexian's 500,000, were all used for the construction of the sect. It was not easy to establish a sect. Han Yu was trying to develop her own power in preparation for her revenge in the future, so she naturally couldn't be careless in establishing the sect. It wasn't for fun. Therefore, she had long run out of spirit stones. She could not help but sigh at the price. Xie Yuxuan wanted to share the burden, but he seemed to have thought of something and held back. If he helped her at the last moment, she would definitely be very grateful. Then, their relationship would definitely be further improved. With this thought in mind, he did not say anything. If sect master really can't make it, we can use other precious materials to replace it. I still have a few precious formation materials here. I can take them out. The interests of the elders and Tai Ching sect were one. It could be said that they were bound together for good or bad. If Tai Ching sect made a fool and lost face, it would not benefit them at all. Therefore, they were all actively thinking of ways. Maybe we can go back to the sect and gather some spirit stones. We might be able to do it. That's right. It doesn't have to be a water elemental spiritual items, right? Can't we use other materials as the formation core? The sixth elder looked a little troubled. The 5 elements lack water, and the dragon eye needs some finishing. In order to activate the formation, it must be a water element spiritual item. Just as everyone was sweating profusely, Shenhai looked around and suddenly said, "Why is Elder Ye not here?" It seemed that Yexian had not been with them since they went down the mountain. Where was Yexian at the moment? Under the scorching sun, cicadas on the trees kept buzzing and rolling heat waves kept coming. Even in the cool Qixia mountain range, where the large trees blocked the glaring sunlight, one could still feel the rising temperature. However, none of this affected Yexian. In the room he was in, there were a few blue crystals placed in every corner of the room. Cold air was emitted from the crystals and filled the room, causing the temperature to drop rapidly. Moreover, the overflowing spiritual power was still nourishing his body, like a pair of cold hands gently caressing him. A comfortable expression appeared on Yexian's face. It should be known that cultivators were also afraid of heat. They had not yet reached the point of ascension, so they also knew about cold and warmth. How can we live without air conditioning in such hot weather? Although we don't have modern air conditioning, the effect of these crystal ice chalcedony are even better. An idea flashed through Yexian's mind. He cut a few more pieces of fruit and placed them on the tray. There was a small pile of crystal ice chalcedony below. In the blink of an eye, faint ice crystals formed on the fruits. He didn't know if it was because it had been nourished by the ice spiritual power, but the fruit was just crunchy when he bit into it and the taste was especially good. It was also especially sweet. The sweet juice of the fruit slid down his throat. It was no different from a bejeweled nectar. Cool. Yexian couldn't help but praise himself for his wit. He enjoyed the comfort of the air conditioner and refrigerator in the fantasy world. The system's introduction of crystal ice chalcedony was very short, so Yexian didn't know how rare and precious it was. If water spirit pearl was the best, then crystal ice chalcedony was the best of the best, which was the kind that couldn't be bought even with money. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely be shocked by Yexian's actions. He was simply insanely rich. Crystal ice chalcedony was a divine item. In the eyes of those ice attribute cultivators, it was simply the top existence. One pill was enough to benefit them endlessly, let alone so many. Moreover, crystal ice chalcedony could be used as a material in formations, alchemy, or weapons refinement. It could be said that it was an existence that everyone dreamed of and fought for. Now, it was just an item that emitted cold air and iced the fruits with Yexian, as if it had no other use. When Han Yu walked in, she found that there was something wrong with this place. It was very cool inside, but the world outside was completely different. The two places didn't seem to be in the same season. As the cold air continued to rise, Han Yu's eyes shifted slightly and saw an icy blue crystal in the corner. The power of the vast ice element coming from it shocked her. Is this crystal ice chalcedony? Han Yu's pupils slightly constricted, and an impossible guess appeared in her heart. She looked around and found that ice blue crystals were everywhere, as if they were free. The most important thing was that a pile of the crystals were shaped into a tray, and it contained ordinary fruits that were not valuable. Chapter 20 A waste of God's gift. If these ice blue crystals were really as she had guessed, it was simply a waste of God's gift. Not to mention these fruits, even the most precious spiritual plant was not worthy of such treatment. Han Yu's breath missed a beat. She took a deep breath and continued forward. She didn't see Yexian, but she heard the sound of water on the other side. Han Yu lifted the bead curtain and was about to walk in when she heard a teasing male voice. So the sect master has a hobby of peeking at other people bathing. She jerked her head up, only to see a strong and muscular body. Droplets of water that had yet to dry flowed down his firm abdominal muscles, and his lower body was only tied with a towel. Han Yu's face instantly turned red. She used to be cold and arrogant when she was in the upper realm, keeping people at arm's length. She had never seen such a maddening scene. She lost her composure for a moment. She staggered and was about to fall to the ground when a strong hand pulled her. The world spun and she fell into cool arms. This feeling was unprecedented. Yexian's upper body was bare, and Han Yu could clearly hear his strong heartbeat. They were embracing each other. Yexian only felt that the person in his arms was weak and boneless. Her waist was like a green willow, and it was unbelievably soft. He could even smell an intoxicating fragrance. Han Yu pushed him away and said sternly, You're bold. Her skin was originally as white as jade, but at this moment, her face was flushed red, like a winter plum that suddenly bloomed in the snow. She was less cold and became more charming, and the corners of her eyes seemed to contain tenderness. With such an expression, coupled with her flustered tone, there was no deterrent force no matter how serious she looked. Instead, she was like a spoiled little girl. As soon as the words left her mouth, Han Yu obviously regretted it. She cleared her throat, calmed her mood, and said, I didn't know you were taking a bath. Her tone was cold, and she had returned to her previous high and mighty attitude. However, if one listened closely, one could still find some guilt in her tone. The corner of Yexian's mouth curved up slightly. He didn't expect the sect master, who was otherworldly, to have such a character. He couldn't help but tease, sect master doesn't need to explain. I know that someone like Sect Master would never do something like taking advantage of me. After hearing Yexian's words, the redness that had faded with great difficulty seemed to have come back. Han Yu didn't know whether it was because of anger or embarrassment. The tip of her ears quietly turned red, but she didn't know it. Who's taking advantage of you? Han Yu couldn't help retorting, but it seemed more coquettish. Looking at her blushing face, Yexian's eyes turned and he said very generously, since the weather is so hot, why don't Sect Master come and take a bath together? The red color on Han Yu's snow-white cheeks instantly spread to her whole body. At this moment, she was like a cooked shrimp. Her face red and her whole body was even steaming. She was so angry that she could barely speak. When she was in the upper realm, no one had ever dared to treat her with such an attitude. Besides, Han Yu had always been reclusive and devoted to cultivation. Therefore, she rarely came into contact with people. There were not many who were as bold as Yexian who actually dared to tease her. Yexian knew when to stop. It was rare to see Han Yu showing such a face, and he was probably the first person to see this. Seeing that Han Yu was on the verge of exploding, he stopped teasing her. Otherwise, if he really made her angry, the consequences would probably be unbearable for him. Sect Master, I was just joking. Why take it so seriously? The weather is hot, be careful not to hurt yourself. She looked at the man in front of her who was smiling mischievously, but his eyes were extremely clear and did not have any ill intentions. No matter where Han Yu went, she was worshipped by people, as if she had no emotions and desires. For some reason, the fire in her heart seemed to have been extinguished, and she felt a little helpless. Ding dong. There was a clear sound of something falling on the ground. It sounded like something had fallen from above. Han Yu took a closer look and found that it was a blue crystal on the ground. She didn't notice that the whole bead curtain was made of it. Yexian saw her gaze on it and said casually, if Sect Master likes it, I'll give you one as well. Just treat it as an apology. His light tone made it seem like he was giving a very ordinary item. He seemed to have thought of something and added, on such a hot day, it's best to put one in every place of the sect. Otherwise, how are the disciples going to survive this hot summer? Yexian was a very generous person. He followed the principle that it was better to be happy together than to be happy alone. Of course, his main purpose was to complete the mission. Han Yu couldn't believe what she heard. She couldn't help but ask, do you know what these things are? Yexian didn't think much of it. It's just crystal ice chalcedony. I have plenty of it. It's worthless. He knew what it was, even though Han Yu had already guessed it. Before this, hearing Yexian's words on her own shocked her even greater. Worthless? The crystal ice chalcedony that cultivators couldn't get even one with money was actually worthless to Yexian. She looked around and saw what Yexian had done with the crystal ice chalcedony. He treated it like an ordinary ice block or a decoration. It was no wonder that he would say something like this. For a moment, Han Yu's mood was extremely complicated. They had been searching for water spirit pearl everywhere, but they couldn't even afford the replacement, water elemental pearls. In contrast, crystal ice chalcedony, which was of a higher grade than water spirit pearl, could be seen everywhere in Yexian's place. She didn't doubt Yexian's words at all. He wanted to place one in every place of the sect. Just from the decoration of Yexian's room, he could really afford